the briefing room. I'm Bill Froehlich from WTCM Radio, and this is our weekly roundup of some of the stories that have been making headlines in northern Michigan this week. And joining us at the table, once again, some of the journalists covering those stories. Melissa Smith from 7 and 4 News. Melissa, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
And Pat Sullivan from Northern Express. Good to see you, Pat.
Good to see you, Bill.
We got to start to my right with Melissa, because you have not been at this table for, what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, at least 2 years.
You were out of town for a while. So first off, welcome back to Northern Michigan.
Thank you.
Tell us about briefly where you've been, and let's get back to what brought you back to Traverse City.
Sure. Yeah, I took a job in Davenport, Iowa, pretty much doing the same thing that I was doing here. I was co-anchoring the NBC affiliate, the morning show, out for covers the Quad Cities, which is pretty much kind of right on the border of Iowa and Illinois. So I was out there for about 10 months, and it was a wonderful experience. I learned a ton of information, especially with broadcasting and news. But about December, life circumstances brought me back to Northern Michigan, and I was lucky enough to go back to 7 and 4 and anchor the morning show again. So it's really good to be back, especially seeing all the familiar faces around the area and just being in this area this time of the year. It's perfect.
Good time to come home.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a loyal following, and obviously I saw and you saw the words of support on Facebook when you announced you were coming back. I mean, that's got to be a nice thing too. It
was overwhelming. I was humbled. I didn't even know how to accept it. I didn't realize that many people were watching, and I know that the area we cover, I mean, it's the counties they're huge, the geographical area that we cover, but to see all of the people being so warm and friendly and welcoming, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how people were going to react, and it made me realize even more why I missed it here and why it is such a special place. And the people here, I think, they're what make it so special, and they complement the area. So. Yeah. It was really, really, really nice to see that.
I don't want you to give away any trade secrets. Well, actually I do, but I won't make you give away any trade secrets. But tell us some of the differences between Quad Cities and Traverse City. I mean, what was that like? What was that? How was that experience different?
The biggest thing for me was I missed the water so much. They have the Mississippi River, but it's not the Great Lakes. It's not, the Grand Traverse Bay. They don't have beaches. The people there, they're very, very nice. They're wonderful Midwest people, very hardworking people. Their big crop is corn. Of course, ours is, cherries. So that was, one of the big differences. And the news stories were different too, because it's a whole different economy there. It's a different group of people. And so, I think that I missed the connection that Northern Michigan has with the community. I didn't see it as much there as I do here, and I think that really sets us apart from a lot of different places across the country. And I saw it firsthand, having kind of stepped out of that comfort zone. And it was a great eye-opening experience, but I feel at home here. So for me, it was the right move to come back.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you back.
Thanks,
Bill. For coming back to the briefing room.
Absolutely.
It's been too long. Pat, let's turn over to you, because we want to talk with both of you guys about one of the big stories, probably the biggest story in Traverse City in quite a while, and that's the situation out at Red Ginger with the structural collapse of a brick support beam right in the middle.
What a scary thing.
And we'll start with you, because you were in the area at the time.
Tell
us
it just
about
happened
your Friday night.
I was walking down Front Street, and we saw these people spilling out onto. At first, I thought there was something going on at the State Theater, because there was such a crowd. You couldn't pass the sidewalk. People were spilling out, and then I looked at the people, and you could tell the looks on their faces. Everybody was frazzled and kind of freaked out, and obviously something had happened. And I saw somebody who I knew, and he told me that they were sitting there, and he said part of a wall started coming down, and everybody had to rush out of the restaurant.
You were with your family at the time. Mm-hmm. How do you balance your journalistic curiosity with the family, who, in my experience, just wants you to keep on walking and go home?
In this case, I think it was about 7:30, and we'd been at a gathering earlier in the evening, and we had just tried to get dinner at one place. I had a 5-year-old who didn't have dinner yet, so I had a priority.
There you go. That trumps it all.
But I know that, like, our sister media property, The Ticker, one of the writers for The Ticker, Beth Milligan, somebody told her about it. They were doing Facebook updates right away, and she's done a good job covering the aftermath since then as a breaking news story.
Do you know, and I don't know if either of you know, because I know they evacuated Horizon Books and State Theater as well, but I don't know how immediate that was. I mean, did they pull people out of the middle of a movie? Did there was just I don't really know the timeline. I don't know if we've heard that yet.
I don't know that either, and I imagine. I mean, at first it was clearly just Red Ginger that was evacuated, and I think when the engineers got in is when they said. So I don't know whether that happened Friday night or not.
Yeah, Melissa, take me through the TV side of it, because it's obviously a Friday night.
Right.
You and I were actually at a different function across town.
Yeah.
When we heard about it, obviously we're not on shift, but you guys were obviously there Friday night too, but it's a different ball game, not only at night for a local TV station,
exactly,
but on a Friday night or a Saturday or Sunday. I mean, the weekends are just a whole different animal, as you and I know.
Oh, we do, yes. But yeah, the biggest thing I know, I mean, I actually found out, I was, I think on Twitter and I saw it, or someone else told me, but I know that one of our reporters was sent down there, and I think it was just chaotic because no one really knew what was going on. It was just you saw people coming out of the restaurant, and then someone did send a cell phone video of inside the restaurant, and it looks like the scene from a movie. I mean, you're seeing bricks falling, and people are sitting at tables having dinner. So, and Friday night, like you said, of all days for that to happen, you have,
at one of the most popular spots downtown.
Exactly. And so I know that just visually seeing it from this cell phone video that we've been showing on 7 and 4, it's scary to think what else could have, it looks like the ceiling is falling. So, it just makes you think, wow, could that have happened inside the State Theater too? Could have happened in Horizon because they are connected with the walls? Yeah. So I think there's a lot of unanswered questions right now with it.
Well, it raises more questions too, because that building, from what I remember on the outside of the brick marker from 1899, dozens of businesses down there that are that old or older,
right? In
buildings that are that old or older too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's scary right now to think that, I think they're looking at whether sinkholes are a possible cause of it, and with the State Theater right there, it's kind of scary to think that something could affect the State Theater, and I don't know how you solve a sinkhole problem if that's what it turns out to be.
Yeah, right along the edge of the river too. I mean, my mind starts racing to obviously worst case scenario, which we don't want to think about.
Right. I mean, you think too, this time of the year with the tourists in town, to have a business or businesses closed down, you feel for, these businesses. I mean, this is their prime time to be open. Mm-hmm. So it's just scary all around, and you just hope things get figured out and back into order. So
we are kind of under this mysterious timeline where none of us really know. I don't think last we talked with Red Ginger, they didn't really know when things would be back to normal. They were, when we talked to them on Monday, optimistic. Well, it could be Tuesday, but that's, obviously pipe dream at this point. But even Horizon and the State Theater, we don't know if they'll be able to open today, tomorrow, in time for weekend movies.
Right? Yeah, in fact, I know they did have the engineers on scene. They had them there all week. And then Tom Darga, who owns the building, he's been the one that we've been talking with at 7 and 4, and he just said, we're going to just keep following what these engineers say and follow their lead, because they know best, obviously, when it comes to the structure of the building. It's like you don't want to jumpstart it and open it up and then have this happen again or something else. Yeah.
And there's, Pat, also, in addition to neighboring businesses, apartments up above?
I think that's a rental space above.
Or something. Mm-hmm. So we've got potentially, more people affected than just the technically empty restaurant.
It's true.
We've also got, what they said, 75 Red Ginger employees, another 25 at Horizon, the volunteer staff at State Theater. But we got 100 people out of work who don't know when they'll be back to work. To me, that raises questions about unemployment and how you figure that out. That's not a quick process to file for unemployment, so there's just a whole lot of residual issues around this. Think this will be going on a while?
I hope that they solve it fast and everything gets back to normal as quickly as possible, but I have no idea. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about one of the stories that you're working on for this next issue of Northern Express, Pat. You've kind of been following up on a drug-related story out of Cadillac. Tell us what's coming up in the next issue.
In the next issue, I wrote a story about a 30-year-old man in Cadillac. His name is Jimmy Strobel. He disappeared last July, July 6th. He vanished. He was with. It's unclear who he was last seen with. He was found in September. The police ruled it a suicide, and since then, his mother has been kind of on a Facebook campaign to say she's heard things from different people and that he was taken into the woods and murdered. And I found the story interesting because it's a mystery what happened to him, and because the whole saga unravels around this drug culture in Cadillac of bath salts. I talked to the acting head of the police department in Cadillac, and he said that last summer they had a horrible problem with bath salts, which is this drug that mimics the effects of methamphetamine, but it has a lot more variables. It's a lot worse. The users become paranoid, irrational, immune to pain, and zombie-like. They have uncontrollable movements, and he said that there were people running through the streets naked, people hurting themselves, all kinds of crazy behavior last year in Cadillac because of this drug that they've since staunched the flow of it, they think, and now drug users are back to methamphetamine, which is comparably less disruptive to society than these bath salts.
I was going to ask you about that because we haven't heard about bath salts in quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody had a way of getting them, and they were flowing into Cadillac last summer.
So the update for your story next week. I mean, take us through without giving too much away, if you don't want to, obviously.
Finally, the mother earlier this year convinced the police department to reopen the investigation, and it's currently an open investigation. Whether or not it's a suicide or a homicide. She said that people were contacting her while her son was missing and telling her, I just saw your son, he's okay, he's in Ohio, you can stop worrying about him. And she has Facebook messages from people along those lines. And she's also been contacted by people who say, your son didn't commit suicide, we know who he went into the woods with. He was last seen going into the woods with these 2 or 3 other men, and they came out and he didn't. And she said that what they told her this when he was missing. When he was found in these woods that these people were talking about. So it seems like maybe there are questions.
To say the least.
The police obviously believe that it was at least worth investigating. Right now it's an open question.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Wow. That makes me kind of curious how cooperative police are in a situation like that. I mean, generally speaking, when we have an open investigation, nobody's talking, but this is a little bit different.
I was able to have a conversation with the police about this. They were very limited in what they could talk about because it's open. Honestly, I think that they felt like, they would have rather that I wasn't doing the story, but they talked to me, and our conversation mainly focused on the drug problem last summer in Cadillac. And I mean, in a way, because I felt that that's what I had to make the story about, because this other part of it, the death of a young man. I mean, he spent most of his adult life in prison. One of the people who I interviewed, a bath salts user who I interviewed, said that he was basically muscle for drug dealers who would beat up people to get them to pay up drug debts. He was, by some accounts, a really bad guy. I felt like I needed to make the story about this drug problem that they had in Cadillac and the fact that they feel like they've gotten past it.
And let's turn back over to Melissa. Melissa, this past week, you did an interesting story, a pretty rare opportunity, and a fun one when journalists in Northern Michigan get to take advantage of it, a trip with the Coast Guard.
Oh, it was amazing. Basically, the morning team at 7 and 4 News is working on this segment called Northern Michigan Bucket List. And between our meteorologist, Joe Charlevoix, my co-anchor, Holly Baker, and myself, we had to pick something that we've never done in Northern Michigan that we've always wanted to do. And for me, it was to go up with the Coast Guard and help them co-pilot one of their training missions. And first of all, I mean, the Coast Guard, they're so connected to the community, which makes it all the better because they were so excited to have us. And last Friday, I went up with them, and basically, I mean, I had the full gear on. I had, the helmet, the microphone that they wear inside because it is so loud. You have to have the microphone on to hear everything. And we basically flew over to Frankfurt and then came back north up along the Leelanau shoreline. And it was just the perfect day for it because you could see every bit of detail in the water, the different colors of aqua and the bluffs along the water, and it makes you appreciate the area even more when you see it from that angle. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I look out at the water and it's gorgeous, but when you see it from above, it's just amazing. And then, on top of that, the biggest thing, you have so much more respect for the Coast Guard and what they do. And just to know that they're always there, watching over people in the water, watching over people who are hiking on the dunes, and that's their job. And they don't just cover Northern Michigan, Air Station Traverse City. They cover all the way to Duluth, all of Lake Superior, down to the Saginaw Bay, Chicago, and they're just so humble about it, and they're happy to do it. But it's a job that I just have so much respect for. And the story is going to actually be airing next week on 7 and 4 News. So I'm excited. Cool. Yeah,
that's cool. So what you should have done is make your bucket list that you wanted to co-pilot all the way to Duluth.
That would have been fun.
Don't just make it a quick couple hours, make it a big full day trip.
They probably didn't have enough time. The 2 hours actually flew by. So, but yeah, we lucked out because the weather was perfect and
Did they actually let you co-pilot?
They did. I mean,
you touch the controls?
They showed me what to press, obviously. I mean, I don't know anything about what goes on inside the helicopter, but...
the multi-million-dollar piece of federal government
property.
I
think they were like,
with Melissa Smith at the controls, making me a little nervous.
I didn't really control it, but I was there in the co-pilot seat, and I saw everything that would go on in a typical, they call it a recreational mission, where they just go up there and they're kind of patrolling the coastline, and I was just in awe. And if you ever have the chance to do it, I recommend it because it was just a chance in a lifetime. So
how fast do they go? Does it feel like you're going really fast?
It doesn't. And you know what's funny? And I was thinking this the other day. When you look up and you see the orange helicopter, it looks like they're flying, and they are because sometimes literally, well, they are buildings. But
clarifying. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they have minutes to get to an emergency, so they're taking off fast. But when you're up in the air, you don't feel like it's going that fast. It kind of just feels like you're floating along. And at one point, we were about 7,000 feet above the Suttons Bay area in Leelanau County. And I mean, I think we were maybe going 95 miles an hour plus. So I don't know what that is in terms of nautical miles. Right. But it was just unreal. And I would love to do it again if I ever get the chance to, because it's just the sights of everything and just how it all works. It's fascinating.
If you get to do it again, you should do the rescue swimmer.
I've heard about that.
Jump out, right?
Jump out, and then they hoist you back up in the basket. They said I think they do those in late summer, maybe August, when the water's a little bit warmer.
Good.
So we know it's a little chilly out there now. So.
Very nice. Pat, what's on your bucket list for Northern Michigan?
That's a good question, and one I'm unprepared for right now.
I know, I just threw that at you. It just came to me.
Do you have a bucket list?
No, but now I'm going to have to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
What about those water jet packs that people are using out on West Bay now? You see those?
Did you hear about this story yesterday? We were just talking about this, the man who got injured.
Oh, yeah, I did. I saw that.
We were just talking about this before we sat down. Apparently dove in and hurt his neck.
It looks like it might be kind of tough to do that, like to keep yourself upright.
It does. And clearly dangerous for some people.
Yeah, apparently.
We're just finding out about this one this morning, so we don't really have a lot of details to share, but a gentleman we were talking with this morning who witnessed it.
Actually was there and saw this person.
Leah Morgan saw this happen, so
yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Did they have something at the police meeting this morning about that?
I didn't make it. We were coming here.
Yeah, I was
no email waiting in our email box this morning at Lisa.
Didn't see anything.
So. All right, well, let's shift gears one more time and go back to you, Pat. We just have a couple minutes left. I want to talk about your story in this week's edition of the Northern Express. Political story, and gentleman that Melissa and I both worked with at one point, Greg McMaster, former weatherman who now is state representative running for state senate, and he's not the only weatherman running for office. Tell us your story this week.
I realized when I saw something in the Leland Enterprise earlier this year that Dave Behrens, former 9 and 10, and a long time ago 7 and 4 weather forecaster, he's retired a couple years, and he is running for one of the county commission seats in Leelanau County. And he's a liberal Democrat. Greg McMaster, conservative Republican. I thought it was interesting that our two most prominent weathermen, retired weathermen in Traverse City, are both in politics now.
Yeah. So what insight did they give you? Any parallels you were able to draw between the decisions to go the political route?
I think that they were both drawn to politics out of a genuine commitment to what they believe in. And what ties it together, I think, is that they both have a great advantage going into politics because they're so well known. Their faces are well known. They've been in everybody's living room. It's like they have a built-in leg up over whoever they run against.
Yeah, that's interesting. Any, I don't know, unusual comments or anything that kind of surprised you from either one of them about the decision to run for office?
I think it surprised me that when I started researching it, I was expecting to go online and find out, oh well, all over the country this is happening. Like, it's not an easy Google search to do when you go weathermen politics, because there was that 1970s radical group called the Weathermen, and so you get like a million. Anyway, I tried to find political experts and there's got to be other people elsewhere. I could find one example in the country.
Wow, that is interesting. Greg was at 7 and 4 when we were there,
Right.
Obviously, and basically had to make the decision when he first ran for office because he couldn't obviously be on the air while campaigning. So that was, you were there at that time too, right?
Yeah,
when
it was a big
basically
deal.
made the decision, all right, this is it. I've got to leave my career and try something different.
Try something
So
absolutely
he
different.
had, I don't know, 6-9 months of basic unemployment as he was campaigning for this job. So what do you remember about that? Anything just in terms of
I just remember
Greg's departure from television?
Yeah, I just remember he was very passionate about it. That was the big thing. He just, would say things like, this is what I believe in, these are my beliefs. So then I think that was what pushed him to do it. But yeah, like you said, it was giving up his, job as a meteorologist, and
Because he was not of, and still is not of, retirement age
right,
necessarily.
exactly.
So that was,
it's a big move.
Initially it was a surprise to a lot of us, I think.
I think so.
Once you found out his kind of desire, it was
Right.
a no-brainer for that. So, well, good. And that's in this current
It's
issue of
on the
Northern
streets
Express.
right now. Yep.
Great. Well, Pat, thanks for coming in. Pat Sullivan from Northern Express.
Thanks.
Good to see you again. And Melissa Smith from 7 and 4.
Thanks,
Good to
Bill.
have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the briefing room this week. I'm Bill Froehlich, and we'll see you again next time right here at the briefing room.